My brother received a rented lake house and a private chef for his 25th birthday. I got a stale grocery store cupcake and a lecture on gratitude. They didn't realize I held the reservation confirmations for their entire trip, so I quietly canceled everything and boarded a plane. Before we continue today's story, we have an urgent announcement to make. Due to technical issues, we are pivoting towards another channel. Please subscribe to our new channel, Inherited Revenge. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. I was physically shaking, my hands trembling beneath the mahogany dining table so violently that I had to clasp them together just to keep them still. It wasn't the cold. The restaurant was perfectly climate-controlled, smelling of expensive truffles and aged steak. It was the sheer, overwhelming exhaustion of the last 48 hours, compounded by a sudden, sharp blow to my chest that felt suspiciously like heartbreak. I had just spent the last week running on 4 hours of sleep a night. As a senior event planner for one of the city's top firms, my life was a constant stream of logistics, vendor negotiations, and crisis management. Usually, I was paid handsomely for this, but for this particular event, my brother Ryan's 25th birthday extravaganza, I had been working pro bono. Or rather, I had been working for the currency of familial duty, a currency that seemed to undergo hyperinflation every time I tried to cash it in. "Happy birthday, son," my father Mason boomed, his voice carrying that jovial, performative quality he always adopted when he was trying to impress the waitstaff. He stood up, raising a crystal flute of champagne. "To a quarter-century of brilliance, we are so proud of the man you've become." Ryan, looking every bit the golden boy with his perfectly gelled hair and the designer watch I knew he hadn't paid for, grinned lazily. "Thanks, Dad. Seriously, this whole week is going to be sick." "It certainly is," my mother, Liliana, chimed in. She reached over and squeezed Ryan's hand, her manicured nails digging slightly into his skin in a gesture of possessive adoration. "A week at the Lakeview Lodge. Just imagine, the boat rental, the private chef coming in on Thursday. You deserve every bit of it, sweetie." I sat there frozen. My birthday was today, too. Technically, Ryan's birthday was yesterday, and mine was today. We were 3 years apart, but for as long as I could remember, our celebrations had been merged. Merged was a polite way of saying my birthday was absorbed into his, like a small moon swallowed by a gas giant. I looked at the pile of gifts stacked next to Ryan's chair. There was the envelope containing the confirmation for the luxury SUV rental. There was the box for the new gaming console. There was the brochure for the lake house, a property that cost more for a week than my rent for 3 months. And Mason cleared his throat, looking slightly uncomfortable as his eyes flickered toward me. And of course, happy birthday to our Sadie. The table went quiet. Liliana didn't look at me. She was too busy signaling the waiter to refill Ryan's glass. "Oh, right," Ryan said, his mouth half full of bread. "Happy birthday, sis." Liliana reached into her oversized tote bag. "We didn't forget you, Sadie. Don't look so sour." My heart gave a little jump. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the exhaustion had made me cynical. Maybe, just this once, they had planned something. A spa day, a simple dinner just for me, a thoughtful book. Liliana pulled out a small, clear plastic container. Inside sat a single cupcake. It wasn't from a bakery. I knew that specific shade of neon pink icing. I knew the slightly sweating plastic. It was from the discount rack at the chain grocery store down the street. The price sticker had been half peeled off, but I could still see the orange "Manager's Special" tag residue. She slid it across the white tablecloth. It looked absurd sitting there amidst the fine china and crystal glasses. Next to the cupcake was a card. I opened the envelope. It was a generic card, the kind you buy in a bulk box of 50. Inside, in Liliana's looping, sharp handwriting, it read, "Happy birthday. Maybe next year will be your year." "We know things have been tight," Liliana said, her voice dropping to a stage whisper that suggested I was destitute rather than a successful professional. "So we kept it simple for you. We didn't want to overwhelm you." "Simple," I whispered. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "Oh, don't start," Liliana snapped, her face hardening instantly. "Ryan is turning 25. It's a milestone. You're turning 28. It's nothing really, just a Tuesday." "I planned this dinner," I said, my voice gaining a fraction of strength. GTH. I secured the reservation at the Obsidian on a Friday night. I organized the lake house rental. I vetted the chef. "And you did a great job," Ryan said dismissively, reaching for the cupcake. "Can I have this? You're watching your carbs anyway, right?" He reached for my only gift. Something inside me, a structural beam that had been bearing the weight of this family dynamic for decades, finally snapped. It wasn't a loud explosion. It was the quiet, terrifying sound of total collapse. I looked at Ryan's hand hovering over the plastic container. I looked at Mason, who was studiously examining the wine list to avoid eye contact. I looked at Liliana, who was watching me with that familiar, challenge-ready smirk. The betrayal, I thought, the realization washing over me colder than the ice water in my glass, wasn't that they loved him more. It was that they didn't even respect me enough to hide it. The waiter arrived with the main courses right as Ryan's fingers grazed the plastic lid of the cupcake container. The distraction saved the moment from boiling over immediately, but the heat remained, simmering just beneath my skin. "For the gentleman," the waiter said, placing a massive bone-in ribeye in front of Ryan. "And for the lady," he placed a delicate, complex sea bass dish in front of Liliana. Mason got the lamb. And then the waiter paused. He looked at his tray, then at me, then back at his tray. A flush of professional embarrassment crept up his neck. I apologize, miss," he stammered. "It seems I don't have an order for you on the ticket." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a diamond. "Oh," Liliana laughed, a light tinkling sound that grated on my nerves like sandpaper. "That's right. Sadie, you said you were that hungry earlier, remember? We figured you'd just pick off the appetizers. We ordered 3 plates of the calamari." I hadn't said that. I hadn't said anything even remotely resembling that. I had been on the phone with the lake house property manager for 45 minutes in the car ride over, fixing a glitch with the heated pool that Ryan had insisted upon. "Right," I said, my voice hollow. "I'm not hungry." "See," Liliana beamed at the waiter. "She's fine, just bring her another water." As the family dug into their meals that easily cost $50 a plate, I took a sip of my water. My stomach twisted violently. I wasn't just hungry, I was ravenous. I hadn't eaten since a granola bar at 6:00 a.m. because I had been running errands for them. I watched them eat. Ryan was talking with his mouth full, describing the jet skis he planned to rent. Mason was nodding along, occasionally wiping grease from his chin. Liliana was cutting her fish with surgical precision, her eyes darting around the room to see who was watching us, ensuring we looked like the perfect, affluent family. I slowly pulled my phone out of my purse and placed it on my lap, hidden by the napkin. I opened the airline app. I had been browsing flights for weeks, a fantasy I used to fall asleep, dreaming of going somewhere, anywhere, where nobody knew my name and nobody needed me to coordinate a catering menu. I had a flight tracked, a red-eye to the coast. It left in 3 hours. I looked up at Liliana. "So, the lake house is all set for check-in tomorrow at noon?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, almost conversational. "Yes, obviously," Liliana said, waving her fork. "You sent us the itinerary. Don't be tedious, Sadie. We know you did the booking. We've already thanked you." "I just want to make sure you have everything you need," I said, "because the security deposit, that's on my card, right?" "Well, yes," Mason spoke up, taking a swig of wine. "Your mother and I are covering the rental fee, of course, but the agency required a card for incidentals and the hold. We figured since you have that." "What is it? That platinum card?" It made sense for the points. "Right," I said, "the points." "And you're driving up separately tomorrow with the supplies?" Ryan asked. "Because there's no room in Dad's car with all my gifts." "That's the plan," I lied. I looked down at the cupcake again. "Maybe next year." The phrase echoed in my head. It was the motto of my life. Maybe next year they would come to my graduation. Maybe next year they would acknowledge my promotion. Maybe next year I would matter. I took a photo of the cupcake. Just the cupcake, the bleak plastic container, and the corner of the generic card. I didn't post it. I didn't send it to anyone. I just saved it to my favorites album. It was evidence. It was fuel. "I'm going to use the restroom," I said, standing up. My legs felt surprisingly steady. "Don't be long," Liliana said, not looking up from her sea bass. "We're going to do the toast for Ryan's future in a few minutes, and we need you to take the video." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied. I walked toward the restrooms, past them, and kept walking. I walked right out the heavy oak front doors of the restaurant and into the cool night air. The valet saw me and perked up. "Retrieving your car, ma'am." "No," I said, pulling up the Uber app. "I'm not coming back." I got into the waiting car 3 minutes later. As we pulled away, my phone buzzed. A text from Mason. "Dad, where are you? The waiter is asking if we want dessert coffee. Mom is getting annoyed." I didn't reply. I just looked out the window as the city lights blurred. They had forgotten one crucial thing. In the world of high-end event planning, the person who holds the reservation holds the power. And I held every single confirmation code, every security deposit, and every access pin for their entire week. They thought I was just the secretary. They were about to learn I was the CEO of their vacation. To understand why a store-bought cupcake was enough to make me sever ties with my entire biological family, you have to understand the 28 years that preceded it. My childhood wasn't tragic in the Dickensian sense. We weren't starved or beaten. We were upper middle class. We had a nice house in the suburbs, 2 cars, and annual vacations. But within the walls of that nice house, there was a caste system as rigid as stone. Ryan was the prince, I was the staff. When Ryan broke a neighbor's window with a baseball, Liliana blamed the neighbor for putting a greenhouse so close to the fence. When I got a B+ in AP Calculus, Mason asked why I couldn't focus like Ryan, who was currently failing remedial math, but was a creative genius who shouldn't be stifled by grades. The dynamic shifted when I turned 18. I realized that if I couldn't buy their love with achievement, I would buy it with utility. I became useful. I became indispensable. I became an event planner because I had been training for it my whole life. Managing Liliana's moods, organizing Mason's schedule, cleaning up Ryan's messes, it was all just project management. By 25, I was handling 6-figure weddings and corporate retreats. And I used those skills for them. When Ryan got a DUI at 21, I was the one who found the lawyer, paid the retainer, and organized the community service to make it look like voluntary philanthropy for the court. When Mason and Liliana wanted to renew their vows, I planned the entire ceremony, negotiated the venue down by 40%, and stayed sober the whole night to manage the vendors. I thought, foolishly, that I was banking credit. I thought that if I did enough, saved them enough, impressed them enough, eventually Liliana would look at me with the same soft, dewy eyes she used for Ryan. Liliana was the architect of this misery. She was a beautiful woman, aging with the help of expensive creams and subtle procedures, who believed that a son was a reflection of a mother's worth, while a daughter was simply competition. "You look tired, Sadie," she would say whenever I visited, scanning my face for wrinkles. "You work too hard, it's making you look severe." Meanwhile, Ryan, who was currently between startups, unemployed and playing video games in his apartment that Mason paid for, was described as rugged and taking time to find his true north. The antagonist of my life wasn't a villain in a cape. It was a woman in Lululemon leggings who would smile sweetly while stabbing me in the back. As the Uber sped toward the airport, I thought about the clever trap I had mentioned to myself earlier. It wasn't just the reservations. 3 months ago, Liliana had asked me to help them modernize their finances. They wanted to use apps, digital wallets, automated payments. They were hopeless with technology. So, being the good daughter, I set it all up. I created the accounts, I set the passwords, I linked the cards. And because they were lazy, they never changed the login details. Sadie handles the tech stuff, Mason would say proudly to his golf buddies. She's a wizard with the iPhone. I looked down at my phone. I had the admin access to the family shared calendar, the travel portal they used for the trip, and crucially, the digital key app for the lake house. I wasn't just going to cancel the reservations. That would be too simple. I was going to let them drive 4 hours to the lake. I was going to let them unload the car. I was going to let them walk up to the beautiful, timber-framed front door of the Lakeview Lodge with their coolers full of beer and their floaties. And then, I was going to make sure the door didn't open. The text messages were starting to pile up now. Liliana, Sadie, this isn't funny. The bill is here. Ryan, dude, where are you? You have the keys to the SUV for tomorrow. Liliana, you are ruining your brother's night. Get back here right now. You are being incredibly selfish. Selfish. I laughed, a dry, sharp sound in the quiet of the Uber. For 28 years, I had been selfless. I had given them my tea. Me, my money, and my self-esteem. Tonight, for the first time in my life, I was going to be exactly what they accused me of being. I opened the airline app and confirmed my check-in. Destination: a resort in Cabo San Lucas that I had bookmarked for a client's honeymoon but never visited. I was going to have a birthday, and for the first time, I wasn't going to share it. The humidity of Cabo hit me the moment the automatic glass doors of the airport slid open. A warm, salty embrace that felt infinitely more welcoming than the hug my mother had given me at Christmas. I had turned my phone on Do Not Disturb for the flight, a 4-hour window of blissful silence where I pretended I didn't exist. But now, as I sat in the back of a private shuttle, an unnecessary expense I had booked purely out of spite, I watched the notifications stack up on my lock screen like a game of Tetris I was destined to lose. 14 missed calls from Mom. 8 missed calls from Dad. 3 texts from Ryan. Yo, did you leave with the keys to the SUV? Not cool. I didn't open them. Instead, I opened the confirmation email for my hotel, the Azure Breathless Resort, adult only, all-inclusive. When I arrived, the concierge greeted me with a cold towel and a glass of hibiscus tea. Welcome, Miss Sadie. We have you in an ocean view suite for 5 nights. Is there anything special you are celebrating? I took the glass, the condensation cool against my palm. My birthday, I said, the words feeling strange in my mouth, and a retirement. Retirement? He asked, tilting his head politely. You seem quite young for that. I'm retiring from a very demanding unpaid internship, I said, a small, genuine smile touching my lips for the first time in days. I'm hoping the severance package is peace of mind. Once I was in the room, a sprawling expanse of white linens and marble floors that opened onto a balcony overlooking the Pacific, I didn't immediately run to the beach. I didn't order a margarita. I did what I always did. I set up a command center. I opened my laptop on the small round table on the balcony. The ocean roared rhythmically below, a stark contrast to the sterile silence of my apartment back home. I connected to the hotel Wi-Fi and logged into the family admin folder I had created 3 years ago. It was pathetic, really, how organized I was for them. I had a spreadsheet for their expenses, a shared calendar for their appointments, and a digital vault for their passwords because Mason couldn't remember a login to save his life. I navigated to the banking portal. I needed to see exactly what I was dealing with. I knew the lake house was expensive. I had booked it, after all, $4,000 for the week. But as I scrolled through the transaction history of the joint account I managed for household expenses, an account I contributed to monthly for emergencies, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Transaction: Gourmet Chef Services deposit $2,500. Transaction: Lakeview Boat Rentals $1,800. Transaction: Party City Custom Decor $450. I did the math quickly. They had spent nearly $5,000 on extras for Ryan's birthday. $5,000. And then I clicked on the Details tab for the chef charge. It wasn't just a deposit, it was a transfer to a personal Venmo account. Ryan's buddy, I whispered to the empty room. They hired his friend. I knew this friend. He wasn't a chef. He was a line cook at a burger joint who threw decent backyard barbecues. They were paying him $2,500 of family money that was supposed to be for house repairs or medical bills, to grill burgers for Ryan while I got a cupcake that cost less than a gallon of gas. The disparity wasn't just insulting, it was financial malpractice. I opened the Smart Home app next. This was the app that controlled the digital locks for the rental property. Because I had made the reservation under my profile to get the Superhost discount, I was the primary administrator. I saw the status: Lakeview Lodge, door locked, access code 1234 active. They were due to arrive in 3 hours. They would be tired. They would be hauling coolers of beer and bags of groceries. They would be expecting the code I had texted them, 1234, to work. I deleted the code. I created a new one, a random string of 6 digits that only I knew. Then I went to the reservation management page. I saw the Add Guest feature. I removed Mason. I removed Liliana. I removed Ryan. Technically, the reservation was in my name. Legally, I was the only person entitled to be on that property. By removing them, I wasn't just locking them out. I was ensuring that if they tried to break in or call the property manager, they would be flagged as trespassers. My finger hovered over the Save Changes button. A lifetime of conditioning screamed at me, "Don't do it. It's too mean. They're your family. Just take the high road." And I looked at the photo in my phone, the neon pink cupcake, the maybe next year. "No," I said aloud, the word catching in the salty breeze. "Not next year, today." I clicked save. I spent the next 3 hours by the pool, my phone buried deep in my tote bag. I swam laps until my muscles burned, trying to exorcise the guilt that was trying to cling to me like barnacles. It was a strange sensation, feeling guilty for stopping people from using you. It was a testament to how deep the indoctrination went. At 1:15 p.m., I went back up to the room. They should have arrived at the lake house 15 minutes ago. I poured myself a glass of sparkling water from the minibar and sat down on the edge of the bed. I took my phone out. The screen was black. I tapped it. It lit up with an explosion of notifications. 52 missed calls. 18 voicemails. 99 plus text messages. It had begun. I unlocked the phone. The messages were coming in so fast the screen was glitching. "Ryan, the code isn't working. What did you do?" "Liliana, Sadie, pick up the phone right now. We are standing in the driveway." "Mason, the owner says our names aren't on the list. Call me immediately." "Ryan, this isn't funny, Sadie. I have to pee, and the mosquitoes are eating us alive." I watched the texts roll in for a full minute, feeling a detached sense of fascination, like a scientist observing a chaotic chemical reaction. They were panicking. Not because they were in danger, but because for the first time in their lives, the red carpet hadn't unrolled itself before their feet. My phone rang again. It was Liliana. I took a deep breath, centered myself, and swiped accept. "Hello," I said, my voice calm, almost bored. "Sadie?" Liliana's voice was a shriek that distorted the speaker. "What is going on? We are at the lodge and the code doesn't work. The property manager says the reservation was modified. Fix it, now." "I can't fix it, Mom," I said, walking out to the balcony to watch a parasailer glide over the ocean. "I'm on vacation." "Vacation? What are you talking about?" She sounded breathless, likely from pacing. "We are here for Ryan's birthday week. You were supposed to drive up with the supplies. Where are you?" "I'm in Cabo," I said. "It's beautiful here. The water is the exact color of that Tiffany box you bought Ryan for his graduation. Remember that." There was a stunned silence on the other end. I could hear Mason in the background yelling, "Is she fixing it? Tell her to hurry up, the ice is melting." "Cabo," Liliana whispered, the word sounding like a curse. You left without telling us on your brother's birthday week." "My birthday, Mom," I corrected her. "It's my birthday too, or did you forget already? The cupcake was memorable." "Is this about that stupid cupcake?" Liliana's voice hardened, shifting instantly from confusion to attack mode. "Sadie, grow up. You are 28 years old. You are throwing a tantrum like a toddler and ruining a $5,000 trip because of a cupcake." "It's not about the cupcake," I said, gripping the phone tighter. "It's about the fact that I planned this trip. I booked this house. I organized the chef. And last night, you looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't worth a real dessert." "We fed you dinner at a 5-star restaurant," she screamed. "You fed Ryan," I corrected. "The waiter didn't even know I was there. And you know what? That's fine. I'm used to being invisible. So I decided to grant your wish. I've made myself invisible. I'm not there to fix the code. I'm not there to call the manager. I'm not there to pay the deposit." "You have to give us the code," Liliana hissed. "We have the car packed. Ryan's friends are driving up in an hour. You cannot do this." "The reservation is in my name, Mom," I said coldly. "And since I'm not staying there, I canceled my access. Policy strictly states the primary guest must be present. If you try to break in, the alarm will trigger and the police will be called. I can't stop that. It's automated." "You little—" "Sadie," Ryan's voice burst onto the line. He must have snatched the phone. "Stop being a psycho. Give us the code. My boys are coming. Do you know how embarrassing this is going to be?" "Maybe next year," I said. "What?" Ryan asked, confused. "Maybe next year will be your year," I quoted the card they had given me. "But this week isn't. This week is canceled." "I'm going to kill you," Ryan snarled, "when you get back." "I wouldn't threaten the person who controls the family cell phone plan, Ryan." I cut him off. "Or the Netflix password. Or the insurance login. Actually, you might want to check your data plan. I downgraded everyone to the basic tier this morning. Roaming charges might apply if you're trying to find a hotel." "Sadie, please," Mason's voice came on now. He was the negotiator, the enabler. "Let us be reasonable. We can talk about this. Just unlock the door and we'll get you a nice gift when we get back, a really nice one, promsy." The bribery, the last resort of a weak man. "I already bought myself a gift, Dad," I said, looking at the ocean. "And it cost exactly as much as the peace of mind I've been missing for 20 years. Goodbye." I hung up. Then I blocked the number. Not permanently, just for the next 24 hours. I wanted to enjoy my sunset without the buzzing. But as I sat there, the adrenaline fading into a shaky fatigue, I realized something. They hadn't denied the cost. They hadn't denied the disparity. They just thought they were entitled to my labor regardless of how they treated me. And that realization made me curious. If they felt entitled to my time, what else did they feel entitled to? I opened my laptop again. I needed to look deeper into the family trust account, the one my grandmother had left for educational expenses. I hadn't looked at it in years because I had finished paying off my student loans myself. But Ryan was always taking courses. I logged in. The balance was 0. The 0 stared back at me like a hollow eye. Balance $0. My grandmother had left $50,000 in that trust. It was meant to be split, 25 for me, 25 for Ryan. I had never touched my half, saving it for a down payment on a house one day. I assumed it was safe. Mason was the trustee, but the terms were strict. I clicked on transaction history. Withdrawal $12,000, tuition assistance. Date 2 years ago. Withdrawal $8,000. Living expenses rent. Date 18 months ago. Withdrawal $25,000. Business startup capital. Date 6 months ago. My jaw dropped. They had drained it, all of it. Business startup capital? That was for Ryan's app idea that never made it past a sketched logo on a napkin. They had given him my inheritance to fund a pipe dream that didn't exist. I wasn't just the scapegoat, I was the bank. My phone buzzed again. It wasn't a call this time. It was an email notification. Subject: Urgent LAKVIW Lodge Incident Report. From Property Management. Dear Ms. Sadie, we have received reports of individuals attempting to force entry into the rear patio door of the Lakeview Lodge. Neighbors have called the police. As the reservation holder, please advise if these are authorized guests. If not, we will proceed with trespassing charges. I stared at the screen. They were actually trying to break in. They were so desperate, so entitled, that they were risking arrest rather than admitting defeat and booking a Motel 6. I typed my reply. To Property Management. From Sadie. I am currently out of the country. No one is authorized to be on the property. Please handle according to your standard security protocols. I hit send. Then I went back to the bank records. I needed more. If I was going to burn this bridge, I wanted to nuke the foundations. I remembered that Liliana's iPad, the one I bought her for Christmas 3 years ago, was synced to my iCloud account because she didn't understand how to make an Apple ID. She used it for everything: recipes, Facebook, and iMessage. I opened the Find My app on my laptop. The iPad was pinging from a location on the highway, likely a rest stop where they were currently regrouping. I opened the Messages app on my MacBook. Because the accounts were linked, her messages populated in real time. I saw a group chat named Team Ryan pinned to the top. I wasn't in it. I clicked it. The timestamp was from last night during the dinner. Liliana, 7:14 p.m. She's wearing that awful gray dress again. She looks like a librarian. Ryan, 7:16 p.m. Just make sure she pays the tip. I'm saving my cash for the boat. Mason, 7:20 p.m. Don't worry, I told the waiter to put the wine on her tab if she offers. She always offers. Liliana, 7:45 p.m. The cupcake idea was genius, Lil. She didn't even complain. She's so desperate for attention she'll take anything. Ryan, 7:46 p.m. Lol, maybe next year. Brutal, love it. I read the messages twice. She's so desperate for attention she'll take anything. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and fast. It wasn't sadness. It was the physical release of a delusion I had been holding onto for decades. The delusion that they loved me, but were just bad at showing it. They didn't love me. They mocked me. They stole from me. They used me as a punchline in a group chat named after the brother they worshipped. I screenshotted the entire conversation. Then I screenshotted the bank withdrawals showing the theft of my inheritance. I compiled them into a single PDF file. Then I composed a new text message. I unblocked them for this one moment. To Mom, Dad, Ryan. Attachment: the truth, PDF. Sadie, I just saw the police report from the lodge. I hope you have a lawyer. You might need one for the trespassing charges, but you'll definitely need one for the embezzlement of my trust fund. I'm contacting the bank and the estate attorney on Moaned. I to report the fraudulent withdrawals. Enjoy the motel. I hear the continental breakfast is free. I hit send. Then I turned off my phone, put it in the hotel safe, and locked the door. I walked out to the balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in violent shades of purple and orange. It was chaotic and beautiful. For the first time in 28 years, I wasn't wondering what they were doing. I wasn't wondering if they needed me. I knew exactly where they were, in a parking lot, reading a PDF that spelled the end of their free ride. I took a deep breath of the ocean air. Happy birthday, Sadie, I whispered. I returned from Cabo 5 days later, my skin bronzed, my hair lighter from the sun, and my soul roughly 50 pounds lighter from shedding the dead weight of familial obligation. I hadn't spoken to them since the email. I had seen the missed calls, hundreds of them, but I had treated them like spam risks. I landed on a Monday morning and went straight to my office. I worked at Prestige Events, a firm housed in a glass-walled high-rise downtown. It was a fortress of professionalism, a place where emotions were managed with spreadsheets and crises were solved with checkbooks. It was my sanctuary. Or at least, it was supposed to be. I walked into the lobby at 9:00 a.m., holding a latte and wearing a new linen suit I'd bought at the resort boutique. The security guard, a burly, kind man named Marcus, whom I bought coffee for every Christmas, gave me a tight, worried smile. "Morning, Miss Sadie," he said, stepping out from behind his podium. "Welcome back, you look rested." "I am Marcus," I smiled. "Best birthday of my life, everything okay?" He shifted his weight. "Well, you have visitors. They didn't have an appointment and they didn't have passes, but they caused quite a scene insisting they were family. Management put them in the glass conference room by the elevators to keep them from yelling in the lobby." My stomach tightened, not with fear, but with a cold, hard resolve. Let me guess. A woman in oversized sunglasses, a man looking at his shoes, and a guy in a hoodie who looks like he wants to punch a wall. "That's the description," Marcus nodded. "Do you want me to remove them?" "No," I said, adjusting my bag. "I want to finish this, but Marcus, keep the radio handy." I walked to the elevators. The conference room was visible to the entire lobby and the open-plan office on the mezzanine above. It was a fishbowl. Inside, they looked like refugees from a failed reality show. Liliana was wearing the same outfit she'd worn at the dinner, but it was wrinkled, and her hair was pulled back in a severe, greasy bun. Mason was slumped in a chair, rubbing his temples. Ryan was pacing, kicking at the leg of the mahogany table. I swiped my badge, and the door hissed open. The air in the room was stale, smelling of nervous sweat and old coffee. "You," Ryan shouted the moment he saw me. He lunged forward, but Mason grabbed his arm. "Do you have any idea what you did to us?" "I have a pretty good idea," I said, setting my latte down on the table with a deliberate clink. "I assume the motel wasn't to your liking, or did you end up sleeping in the SUV?" "We slept in a Motel 6, Sadie," Liliana shrieked, standing up. Her composure was gone. "With truckers, the lake house manager called the police. We had to leave in the middle of the night because they threatened to tow the car." "Trespassing is a serious crime," I said calmly. "I warned you." "You ruined my birthday," Ryan spat, his face red. "You humiliated me in front of my friends. They all left. They drove home because there was nowhere to stay. Do you know what I looked like?" "Like a 25-year-old man who can't book his own vacation," I suggested. "Stop it," Mason slammed his hand on the table. It was the most authoritative he had been in years. "Enough bickering. Sadie, we are here to talk about this email, this PDF." "Ah," I said, leaning against the glass wall. "The audit." "It's a misunderstanding," Mason said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He glanced at the glass walls, aware of the eyes of my coworkers passing by. "The trust fund? We didn't steal it. We borrowed it for the family." "You borrowed $50,000, I asked, without asking the beneficiary. "It was an investment," Liliana interjected. "Ryan's business." "Ryan doesn't have a business, Mom." I raised my voice, letting it carry. "He has a drug habit and a gambling problem on sports apps. I saw the Venmo history, remember? DraftKings isn't a startup incubator." Ryan flinched as if I'd slapped him. "Shut up, you don't know anything." "I know that you spent my tuition reimbursement on a trip to Vegas last year," I countered, pulling a folder from my bag. I had printed the evidence at the hotel business center. "I know that tuition assistance withdrawal for $12,000 coincided exactly with the dates of our road trip with the boys. We were going to pay it back," Mason mumbled, looking defeated, "once Ryan's app took off." "It's gone, Dad," I said. The money is gone, and you're legally liable. I spoke to a lawyer in Cabo. He's already drafting the demand letter. You have 30 days to replenish the trust, or I file charges for embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty. You wouldn't, Liliana gasped. We are your parents. You would send your father to jail over money. Not over money, I said, my voice dropping to a deadly chill. Over the cupcake. Liliana stared at me, blinking. The cupcake. Yes, I said. You stole $50,000 from me. You made me your servant for a decade. You ignored my birthday. And then you gave me a stale cupcake and told me maybe next year. You treated me like a dog begging for scraps, assuming I was too loyal to bite. Well, I'm biting. I pulled out the screenshot of the group chat. I slapped it onto the glass table, facing outward so anyone walking by could see the blown-up text bubbles. And this, I pointed to the text where Liliana called me desperate. This is why I'm done. She's so desperate for attention she'll take anything. That's what you wrote, right, Mom? Liliana went pale. She reached for the paper, but I snatched it back. I'm not desperate anymore, I said. I'm free, I have a great job, I have my own money, and I have self-respect. Which means I don't have room for people who mock me in a group chat named Team Ryan. Sadie, please, Mason pleaded, tears welling in his eyes. We can fix this. We can. No, I interrupted. You can't, because I'm not Sadie the fixer anymore. I'm just Sadie, and Sadie is busy. I turned to the door and waved at Marcus, who was watching from the desk. He immediately started walking toward the room. You're kicking us out, Ryan sneered, after we drove 4 hours to find you. I didn't ask you to come, I said. Just like you didn't ask me to the lake house. You just expected me to be there to serve you. Marcus opened the door. Is everything all right, Miss Sadie? No, Marcus, I said, stepping out of the room. These people are trespassing. They are not clients, and they are certainly not family. Please escort them out. If they return, call the police. You can't do this, Liliana screamed, grabbing her purse. Sadie, I'm your mother. I stopped and looked back at her through the glass. The lobby had gone quiet. My boss was standing on the mezzanine, watching. The receptionist was watching. I know, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And that is the only reason I'm giving you 30 days to pay me back before I call the district attorney. Happy birthday to me. I walked toward the elevators. I didn't look back as Marcus firmly guided a shouting Ryan and a sobbing Liliana toward the revolving doors. I pressed the up button, and as the doors closed, I finally exhaled. The fallout was messy, expensive, and utterly liberating. Mason didn't go to jail, but only because he liquidated his 401k to pay me back. The negotiation was handled entirely through lawyers. I refused to meet them in person. When the check for $50,000 plus interest arrived, I didn't spend it. I put it into a high-yield savings account and named it the Freedom Fund. Without my income and my management, their house of cards collapsed with shocking speed. I heard through a cousin, one of the few family members who took my side once the screenshots circulated, that Ryan had to move back home. The golden child was now sleeping in his childhood bedroom at 26, working shifts at a car rental agency because Mason could no longer afford to subsidize his lifestyle. Liliana took the hit the hardest. In their social circle, appearance was everything. When word got out that their daughter had sued them for embezzlement and won, the invitations to galas and brunches dried up. She had become a pariah, not because she was a thief, but because she was a failed mother who had lost control of her own narrative. As for me, I didn't just survive, I thrived. My boss, having witnessed the showdown in the lobby, called me into his office the next day. I thought I was going to be fired for the drama. Instead, he offered me a promotion to Director of Client Relations. I need someone who can handle high-pressure negotiations and isn't afraid to draw hard lines, he had said. The way you handled that was executive material. I spent the next year rebuilding my life from the ground up. I went to therapy. I reconnected with friends I had neglected because I was too busy planning Liliana's dinner parties. I started dating a man named Julian, an architect who actually asked me how my day was and listened to the answer. But the real test came exactly 1 year later. My 29th birthday. I woke up expecting the old ache, the phantom limb of rejection. But as I walked into the kitchen of my new apartment, a place I had bought with my own money, no trust fund required, I found Julian standing there. The counter was covered, not with expensive gifts or performative gestures, but with thoughtful things. A first edition copy of a book I loved, a framed photo of us from a hike, and in the center, a cake. It wasn't a store-bought cupcake in a plastic container. It was a homemade, slightly lopsided chocolate cake with vanilla frosting. I tried to make the icing look like a flower, Julian said, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. It looks more like a cabbage, but I promise it tastes good. I walked over and dipped my finger into the frosting. It was sweet, rich, and real. It's perfect, I said, feeling a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with validation and everything to do with love. My phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at it. It was a text from a blocked number. I knew it was Liliana. It was always Liliana on birthdays, trying to wiggle back in, trying to see if the door was unlocked. I didn't read it. I didn't wonder what it said. I didn't feel the urge to explain myself or argue. I simply pressed delete. Make a wish, Julian said, lighting the candles. I looked at the flame, dancing bright and hot. I thought about the girl trembling in the restaurant, staring at a neon pink cupcake. I thought about the woman standing in the glass conference room, demanding her worth. I don't need to wish, I said, blowing out the candles. I already got everything I wanted. I had my freedom, I had my justice. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for next year. I was right here, exactly where I belonged.